Time shall be set aside on the agenda for the receipt of public comments. Public comments will be received with respect to agenda items prior to board consideration of resolutions to be adopted. An additional opportunity for public comment will occur later in the meeting. Public comments shall be limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Unused time may not be transferred to another speaker. Persons may speak once per public comment period. I direct the Deputy Clerk to enter into the minutes of this meeting, this public announcement, and the advance written notice of this meeting. Freeholder Arter.
Present.
Freeholder Belgard.
Here.
Freeholder Howard. Here. Freeholder Schwartz.
Here.
And Freeholder Director Donovan.
Here. Thank you, Mr. Draper. This time, I'll entertain a motion for disposition of the regular public meeting minutes of August 28, 2013.
So,
Moved by Freeholder Howard, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Freeholder Schwartz. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, so indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Resolutions are adopted. Minutes are adopted. This time, I'll entertain a motion for the disposition of the minutes of the regular public meeting of September 11, 2013.
so moved.
Thank you. Moved by Freeholder Howard. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Freeholder Belgard. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, so indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Minutes are approved. And lastly, I'll entertain a motion for disposition of minutes of the conference meeting of August 28, 2013.
So moved.
Moved by Freeholder Howard. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Freeholder Schwartz. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, so indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Those minutes are also accepted. At this time, we have Anna Panza from our Department of Human Services here to give us an update on the goings-on in Department of Human Services. Okay.
Thank you so much, Freeholder Director. We're leaving this as it is? Okay, so I'm going to start from here and address the room. Again, I am Anna Payanzo, Director of the Department of Human Services, and I thought this would be an opportunity to really inform folks of everything that goes on in our building, essentially, and in the community of the Department of Human Services. Just by way of quick snapshot, we consist of 5 county divisions, and 3 affiliated entities, and we have 80 county staff, but that does not include many of the partner agencies who work within our building to help really serve the residents of this county. As we look at the number of individuals whose lives are impacted by the services provided in the department, the number is in the 53,000 range. And I'll get into a little more detail about what that means and how we get to that number as we move through this. In 2012, just to give a quick overview, over 16,000 individuals were served through the Office on Aging. So that's telephone calls, information and referral, but it's also Meals on Wheels clients who see a staff person daily, or it could be a community-based program. We had 122,000 client visits to the Board of Social Services, and we saw a 242% increase in food stamps recipients in 2012 since 2007. And that's an important piece of what we're experiencing in the department, is that there's been this unprecedented rise in need. And staffing is the same, and there's been, it's really being flexible, being creative, it's adapting the resources that we have in order to meet this increased need. So as we do that, we look at how we define human services. When we look at our mission statement, we're really looking at extensive and varied services to help support individuals from all backgrounds with various needs. We look at one-stop shopping. How do we bring a wealth of resources together to help every individual in the county find resilience and direction to a brighter tomorrow? We do that through comprehensive planning and monitoring and shared service delivery. Just to take a closer look at what our structure encompasses, Freeholder Deputy Director Leah Arter is our freeholder. She is, under her direction and under Paul Drayton's direction, we consist of the 5 divisions, again, Office on Aging, Behavioral Health and Youth Services, Community Development and Housing, Employment and Training, and Military and Veteran Services. Many folks have heard already from Kelly West and Walt Tate with a little more detail about the military and the employment services. But we also are working very closely under the reorganization into this new department that took place this year. We're working very closely with the Board of Social Services. They provide Their serving and their resources touch many of the county residents, and they're an integral part of our services through everything we do. We also, in having merged these component divisions into one new department, we have an Office of Administration and Special Projects, which is targeted toward where our staff were, I consider myself a part of that Special Projects team, and we're working towards some key initiatives as we move forward as a department. To get into a little more detail, just snapshot overview, Office on Aging, Division Head Brenda Cushing. They administer approximately $3.5 million in funding. Generally, that's federal dollars, some state dollars, some casino revenue funds, and as I mentioned earlier, over 16,000 individuals were served through their programs. Their programs include nutrition programs, which are Meals on Wheels, and that's face-to-face meal delivery every day. Some individuals receive meals, they receive 7 meals a week. Most receive 5 meals a week. This is services for individuals who are 60 plus or who are disabled in some cases. And the nutrition program also then provides a congregate feeding program where there's socialization as well as a hot lunch and social activities. That's one component of their services. Another component is elder care management. And here we find information and assistance. We find case management services. There's in-home assistance for folks who have some restrictions to living independently in the community. And it's also case management and adult protective services. And I'd like to share a story of an example of some of these programs. We have an individual who is blind and living in an apartment, and contacted the aging office because he was in a situation where the apartment complex was changing the washing machines from having knobs to being digital touch button, and he was no longer able to do his own laundry services and was considering moving into a more heavily staffed living environment. And by doing through the assessment process that happens at the front door in the Office on Aging, and then connecting with the network of providers and services that are available in the community, we were able to determine that with visiting nurse and homemaker services 2 hours, 3 hours a week, he was able to have someone come into the home and help him with his laundry, and he did not need to go to much. That was all that it took to enable him to continue to live independently in his home. So that's just one example of how we look to serve each individual as effectively as possible. And we use a range of resources to get there. We also have community-based services, which include our Senior Farmers Market program, which I'm putting out a plug. We have still a number of vouchers, and we're looking to distribute those all by the end of September. That is for income qualified seniors 60 plus. They're eligible to receive a $20 voucher that can be used at a local farm market, a participating local farmers market. We also have social day programming, physical activity programs at the Y, and a senior legal services program, which is provided in partnership with the Health Department's Division of Consumer Protection. And that is newly administered this year out of the Health Department, and that's a vital resource located on Pioneer Boulevard, and folks can get help with simple wills, various legal matters as needed to help them get through some circumstances. That's an overview of what I just went through. Behavioral Health and Youth Services is our second division. This division, our division manager is Barbara Baglin, and we administer a little over $2.6 million in funding under this initiative. This encompasses mental health and addiction services, which are where we situate our mental health board. We have the Traumatic Loss Coalition, which is a coordination of responses to traumatic incidents in the community. So we manage a team of individuals who often respond when there is a suicide or a major accident in a school. That coalition is called in to help do some immediate post-traumatic stress management with the folks who were involved in that and help connect them to longer-term resources. We have a pretty extensive alcoholism and drug abuse unit, which includes treatment and referral programs, the participation in the local advisory council on drug and alcohol abuse. We serve approximately 425 people every year just in that alone. There's outpatient programming for individuals who otherwise do not have the resources to pay for services. So sometimes it's detox, sometimes it's outpatient services in the community, and it may be halfway houses on an ongoing basis. And we do that again through contracts with community providers. Our Municipal Alliance program handles the prevention side of the drug and alcohol continuum, and that really is a network of local municipal programs. Again, the funding comes through the local advisory council, through the Governor's Council on Drug and Alcohol Abuse. It's funded to develop homegrown projects. So the community identifies the need, the community puts together a plan for how they could fund these, what they would like to see funded, and that becomes part of the county-wide plan that is submitted annually and revisited annually as to what we're going to do moving forward. We also provide youth services. This encompasses our Youth Services Advisory Council, which is focused primarily on services for individuals who are involved in or at risk of involvement in the juvenile justice system. They're so at risk or having been already adjudicated in some cases. It involves extensive work and planning with the probation office, with staff from the court system, and helping to divert folks. And through the Juvenile Detention Alternatives Initiative, we're looking at reducing disparities in the use of detention, and we're looking at preventing detention overall through the systems that we have. So there's a couple initiatives here. The Children's Agency Coordinating Committee looks more at the behavioral health and mental health side of services for kids who have touched the Department of Children and Families. And that really is a work group that coordinates resources to ensure that that there's information sharing around all the participants at the table. Looking at our Community Development and Housing Division, we have Home and CDBG, which is Community Development Block Grant funding, as well as Social Services for the Homeless dollars, which total about $2.4 million. This program really touched 23,000 lives last year. When we look at that, that includes about 16,000 of that includes municipal projects that impacted broad scope of the community. It's about 7,000 folks who were impacted more directly through the services that are funded, which include Providence House, domestic violence services, some transportation services for senior and disabled transportation. But municipal improvement programs specifically have a very broad reach, and through partnerships with municipalities, we're able to fund projects that they develop and that they apply for funding for. The Home Investment Partnership Program funds a first-time home buyers program, which is a resource for anyone who's income eligible and meets the criteria, goes through the underwriting process, and is looking to purchase their first home in Burlington County. Up to $9,000 is available for down payment assistance and closing cost assistance. We have also through the CDBG program, heater replacement program, which again for income qualified individuals, they can apply for heaters, and they can also fund home improvement projects if they need to bring their home up to code. All the information for all these resources is on our website, which I'll have on the last slide. But there's extensive detail about the application process, and those resources, they're there, and you can call the office directly and look online for those resources. The Community Development and Housing Office is also very involved in homeless prevention and planning, and this is where we're situating our 10-year plan to end homelessness. In 2012, this Freehold Board adopted a plan to end homelessness, and it really looked at system improvement countywide. We looked at how we can move better toward establishing a single point of entry. We looked at how we're monitoring our data and determined that we really could do more in terms of utilizing the data that we have available through the Homeless Management Information Services System. We can utilize the funds that we have available through our through the emergency service funding that's administered in the Board of Social Services, and that work group is continuing to move forward an effort to really revamp how people enter the system, how we look at what they're doing within the system, and how we can and what to do with the resources that we have available. And, you know, and from both what we do today perspective and how we can better utilize the resources we have. So for, you know, in one very specific case, we're looking at moving forward with our Code Blue season, and that is one of the emergency response procedures that's in place, so that folks who are in need of a night of shelter, who may not be sheltered, when there's a Code Blue declaration, are able to use a network of volunteer and many faith-based organizations to be sheltered, and that's, you know, into the winter night. So that team of folks is preparing to enact that response process. What's not on here, because it's really very recent, is this Sandy Homeowner Rental Assistance Program funds that this office has just been is in the process of securing. You'll see an item on this evening's agenda to finalize acceptance of the award, and that is to expand the social services for the homeless dollars to help to target individuals who have been displaced by Superstorm Sandy. So if folks were displaced and have incurred costs related to that, they're eligible to apply for the for funding to pay forward some of the expense, to pay forward the equivalent of any expenses that they have during those periods of dislocation. So look for more information on that, but that's an upcoming resource that we're really getting a word out on. Our Employment and Training Division is headed by Kelly West, and here we administer our Workforce Investment Act dollars and our youth learning funds. They directly serve 6,604 individuals through various services. We break them down into really two camps. First, they provide resources to the business community to help them find qualified workers and determine their needs. So they have a business development and a workforce development goal. That includes layoff aversion, that includes hiring incentives, that includes on-the-job training packages so that they can help these businesses really function to their capacity and grow as best they can. The other side of that coin is that we have job seeker services. So here we provide career enhancement services, helping people to search for jobs, helping them identify their strengths and available opportunities for training, helping youth who have barriers to self-sufficiency for the Youth Opportunities Program. We help them develop skills to be work ready. We also have job fairs. There's a job fair at the Burlington Center Mall on this Friday, September 27th from 10 to 1. We're expecting about 50 employers to be represented at that job fair. So we work to bring them all together in that concept. We also coordinate the One-Stop Career Services Center, which is an integrated network of resources. It includes county staff and these career counselor positions, but it also includes Division of Vocational Rehab. It includes partnerships with Burlington College, the Burlington County Institute of Technology for ongoing training initiatives, and employment services staff from the State Office of Labor and Workforce Development. Our last county division is Military and Veteran Services, and this is headed by Walt Tate. They were successful in 2012 in securing over $18 million in benefits for veterans and for widows. And so their primary function is to provide support and guidance and access to benefits. This includes disability compensation claims, education benefits, widow's compensation, and they have a whole book of eligible benefits and what the criteria are, so they go through that with everybody who comes through their doors. And about 4,500 individuals came through their doors last year. They also partner for direct services, including PTSD counseling. They do provide bus service to Philadelphia. They help people in getting veterans ID. They have medal ceremonies, memorial ceremonies, and maintain all the veterans' graves in the county. They put markers on them for Memorial Day and make sure that they're kept up to a level that adequately honors the men and women who have given their lives in our service, or who have served our country in any capacity. Our Board of Social Services are strong affiliated partner in this process, was responsible for securing for about $64 million in local resources that came into the county. This includes direct payments to individuals through general assistance. This includes food stamps. This includes payments for rent through the Section 8 program. So that's payments to landlords. They also provide Medicaid benefits and help people to secure those Medicaid benefits. They also administer homeless prevention program, which is for folks who are at risk of losing their housing and have sustainability, but they're able to help them to pay back due rents or utilities to help keep them from losing their housing in certain circumstances. When you look at what the actual payments are for Medicaid, that number becomes much higher, but included in that is that's through those are the 20,000 and some applications that were processed last year, really, encompass all of these services. Our administration and special projects office, I'll get into a little more detail, but it encompasses the staff who are responsible for personnel and time management within my office. With the reorganization of our department this year, there were a few key initiatives, and we have now based in the Special Projects Office a youth programs coordinator who's been really instrumental in getting the word out and coordinating and revamping what we're doing with youth services. Mr. Sean Smith came on board with me and has really been getting out to the community to effect coordination and communication with many folks. We also have our community relations specialist who is here this evening, and I'll introduce her a little more as we move forward. But Zahira Sabir has just come on board as a community relations specialist, and she's really tasked with carrying out she's staffing our advisory council on women and carrying out our cultural diversity initiative. Our homeless services liaison is really the staff who right now is dedicated to moving us forward on our 10-year plan to end homelessness and serving as a liaison with the Board of Social Services for troubleshooting cases that really that are tricky. So that's all that speaks to what our key strategic initiatives are moving forward. I recall our reorganization meeting on January 1st. Freeholder Director Joe Donnelly really talking about this our goal to move forward in the direction of human services delivery. And that happens through addressing the issues of homelessness in the community and implementing that plan to end homelessness. We're looking at HARP Act, which is revamping the homeless delivery system and the funding for homeless delivery through HUD at the federal level. It really tasks us with looking at our continuum of care and our local planning process and being very proactive and realizing what we were already talking about doing through our 10-year planning process. So, how do we look at that? How do we track performance? How do we make sure that we're as effective as possible in meeting the needs as they come up, or as they're identified in forecasting how we can continue to improve the system? We're really doing that through the elimination of the use of hotels and motels to the extent, that's one of the key goals, and that's driving how we're restructuring and how we're looking at best practice models such as Housing First and rapid rehousing to really get people into stable residences as quickly as possible. We're looking at cultural diversity. That was another one of the initiatives. We're really taking a hard look at how we are understanding the community need. We're looking at what our committees are tasked with doing and who's represented on our committees, and how we can reach out and communicate. So it's outreach, it's communication, but it's also and it's integration of some of the work that has already been happening. Our advisory council on women has been looking at gender issues and looking at the representation of the data around some of the services that we're providing. So bringing that to an advisory role. And again, I'll introduce Zahira Sabir, who is the staff person who just came on board and is really spearheading this initiative. And again, coordination of services for at-risk youth. So here we have multiple committees, as I mentioned, whose functions really overlap. And we also have a number of providers in the community who have been working on these issues but haven't necessarily been involved in our planning structures and in our efforts at the county level. So bringing them into the process, getting their voices connected, and then also we've been successful in looking at funds that we have where we can pilot specific youth development initiatives. And in some of our upcoming events, we have some of these initiatives represented. But we're really looking at piloting youth development initiatives for after-school programming for prevention activities, which is an area that we've not addressed as robustly as we've addressed some of the kind of post-adjudication and involvement in the court system issues. So all that speaks to establishing a single point of entry, really. That is one, this all kind of comes back to, we really are looking at the human services building as a front door. We're looking at the delivery system we have as a front door for access to a range of resources. We're working very closely with the Board of Social Services to communicate more effectively how people can get to their resources. We're promoting online applications. Food stamps and Medicaid applications can be completed online, and we're trying to get the word out about that as much as possible. We have a training scheduled for community providers in November to help largely volunteer-driven organizations learn what the process is and be able to educate folks who come in their doors, such as the St. Vincent de Paul or Servicios Latinos, where people come saying, I could use help with my back rent, or could they can actually, we're hoping that we'll have a good trained network of volunteers to be able to walk them through the process. But we're also being pushed. We do house, our aging office has the Aging and Disability Resource Center, serves as an Aging and Disability Resource Center, and that's really kind of a new ideal. It encompasses a no wrong door kind of approach to no matter where you come in, you get triaged and connected to services in the same way. So our behavioral health and youth services staff are working closely with, and the people in the disabilities unit there are working closely with the folks at the intake and assessment, in the intake and assessment pool at the aging office to say, are we answering questions in the same way? Are we getting the data in the system in the same way? So that people are served, so that we're getting the same level of customer service no matter where we go. And throughout this process, really, it's being driven because it's being driven by some system changes. I mean, overarching a lot of this is the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. There's Medicaid expansion. The applications are increasing. The Board of Social Services is preparing for additional folks to come on board through that process. There's a health benefits navigation and an access navigation component that we just learned. The Employment and Training Division is going to be involved in educating folks about how to apply for health for eligible benefits. So there's system change coming from that end. There's system change coming from budget cuts that are necessitating that we look at how we can streamline our resources differently. And we're looking at a lot of our state partners really moving toward a managed care environment. So that's generating a need for a different use of case management staff and sometimes a repurposing of staff into new roles essentially as we move forward, and coordinating with these new organizations who are involved in care management. And all that, and this is really kind of just how we're moving forward a little bit with many of these initiatives. We're looking again at communication. We're looking at customer service as how would you serve your family members. So there's a lot of staff training, a lot of discussion about how we do that. But it's getting the word out as much as possible. What languages are our materials in? How accessible are they? Are they even where they should be? So we're printing new brochures. We're getting information together as succinctly as possible about how to access resources. But we're also making the best use as we can of Facebook and to get the word out about upcoming events. And we have an electronic calendar for the upcoming youth events that you can access through our website to look at upcoming events for the month. That's updated monthly. We're looking at continuous performance improvement, as I mentioned, really through our information referral and our committee structure, as well as then maximizing the use of technology when it comes to sometimes simple things like how we process our time benefits, but then also what are our intake tools and how do we track our clients through the system. I wanted to take a moment to talk about upcoming events. I mentioned the job fair. We do have job fair at the Burlington Center Mall. The fair is repeating 10 to 1 on September 27th. There's actually, we're very excited that we were able to partner with BCIT and some folks were able to apply for and were awarded free makeovers. So we have 10 individuals who are getting makeovers, and there's a lot that goes into the job fair leading up to the job fair. We've hosted resume development workshops for the youth in our Youth Opportunities Program. It's a year-round effort to help them build their resume. They have Dress for Success workshops. They have self-esteem workshops, healthy interviewing skills workshops, and those are ongoing. But at this point, the fair itself is happening this Friday, and then the ongoing support and resources are always built through the Employment and Training Division. Our senior farmers market vouchers again. We have still several dozen that we're trying to get out to the community, and we do need to get those all out by September 30th. We have a senior medical information fair at the first, I skipped right over, but I want to make sure that everybody knows also next Saturday is our first ever birthday celebration. Our Advisory Council on Aging is partnering with White Spot, with folks at White Spot to carry out, to celebrate Elizabeth White's birthday, who's really a champion of the blueberry, a pioneer of the blueberry industry and the local industry. And there's a blueberry bake-off. If you are a cook and want to participate, you can still sign up, but you can also please just come and sample and see and tour the facility. Looking a little further forward into October, we have a senior medical information fair at the First United Methodist Church on the 29th, and then we also have the beginning of our youth development series. So this is one of the pilot initiatives that was funded. And we're really looking at teen confidence workshops in partnership with the Sheriff's Office. These are working with there's one for girls in November and one for boys in December. And then we're looking at those to be really the start of engaging youth, and then leading up into some follow-up visits in the spring and a youth summit. So these are just some immediate, for more information on any of these activities, you can go to our website, you can call any of the offices and get a lot more information, and you're always welcome to email to get information as well. Any questions?
You did a great job.
Thank you.
At this time, I will open the meeting to the public for comment on any agenda items. If you have any agenda item, please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and that's it. I have a list here, though, which I'm going to start with. First is Paul Brace.
An amazing format. We actually get to look at the freeholders and the folks in the audience as well. I must commend you. Sorry it took so long. Again, I apologize for my loss of control, but I will never apologize for who and what I am. I'd like to refer to what I believe is, according to the agenda that I reviewed, Resolution 7. This is a name that I have seen as I've researched the freeholders agenda over the last 3 times, countless times over. Taylor Design Group, which is in actuality a husband and wife group, was awarded $456,000 and $456,450. please refer to Resolution 9. As it appeared in the agenda that I reviewed, which may not actually be Resolution 9. Again, note, this group, which I've seen countless times over, as I reviewed the agenda closely over the last 3 years, is Taylor Design Group, a husband and wife group, and they were awarded $248,670. Now, both of these awards to one firm is a profit of $705,120 in one night of agenda action. So my question is as follows. Mr. Freeholder Director, how were they approved? How were they selected? What was the process used to determine that you provide in one evening $705,120 of taxpayers' money to one group? What was the criterion involved, sir?
It operates through a selection committee chaired by Mary Pat Robbie, the Resource Conservation Department.
And how many other applications for such a lucrative award were considered, and what was the process that you used before you selected the Taylor Design Group?
Well, just for clarity's sake, I don't know how lucrative it is. And
$705,000, sir, is not a lucrative night of county taxpayers' money? Are you serious?
I don't know how lucrative it is.
Well, what would you, sir, with all due respect, if you don't consider $705,000 being a series of 2 lucrative contracts, and that's what you do as a job, what would you consider a lucrative contract?
When I were to look at the word lucrative, that would be based on some level of profitability. I don't.
Oh, so you don't know what the profit margin is when they're, oh, does that lead into the cost overrun, sir? Does that have something to do with profit margin? I'm just asking inquiring questions. As a freeholder director, I'm sure you have the answers.
You haven't let me answer the question.
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. I'm waiting.
$705,120 for 2 contracts. It's difficult for me to say whether or not it's...
It's difficult for you to ascertain as freeholder director, sir, when you're responsible for the county taxpayers' money. I find that somewhat hard to believe. And if I was rude, I apologize, but I'll continue. How much money did the Taylor Design Group contribute over the last 5 years to the Burlington County Republican Party, sir? Do you know that? I do.
Time's yours.
Oh, perhaps you'd like to share that with the audience during freeholder's comment? In reference to Resolution 7 and 9, will any change orders at any time be... Oh, is my 5 minutes up?
It's not your 5
Okay.
minutes are up.
Can I ask for an extension, because I'm asking relevant questions related to the agenda?
No,
And why is that?
because we don't get it.
And why is that?
It's in the rules of the board.
And when were the rules of the board
Oh,
changed?
your 5 minutes are up.
And when were the
Your
rules of the
5
board
minutes
changed?
are up.
And when were the rules? I'm general public. Are you telling me you are consciously implementing a picayune by design rule to stifle the general public when previously you had a freeholder director, Bruce Gargano, that permitted endless time?
Your 5 minutes are up.
So, thank you for the time. I'm sorry I couldn't continue, but what is clear to me is this Republican-controlled board is trying to stifle public comment. Guess what? I'm not going to let it happen.
Any further public comment on agenda items? Yes, sir.
My name is Louis Lopez from Mount Holly. For now, I'm still, not agree with that. For number 9. For number 10, 13, Yeah, for 10 and 13, could you clarify for me more?
Number 10 is a grant from the Justice Assistance Grant, and it helps fund in the prosecutor's office.
And for
And 13 is one of the things that Ms. Lyanda just touched on in her overview, is that there's federal dollars being funneled to counties throughout the state by the state. And our allocation right now is $1.6 million, and that is to go to victims of Sandy who were displaced from their homes, and they had to relocate, and they were paying for the upkeep of 2 households in response to that, and they are able to apply under this grant to be reimbursed going forward, meaning if they were paying their mortgage while they were displaced and living in an apartment and paying rent in that apartment, they can now apply for their mortgage to be paid for the duration of time that they were displaced from the approval of the application going forward. So it's a way for victims of the hurricane to recoup the probably drastic hit their budget during the month that they were displaced and had from the primary residence and had to pay not only the mortgage on the home or maybe the rent or the utilities on the home they were displaced from, but as well as the federal mortgages too. So this is an opportunity for people to receive government funds that would go directly to their utility, directly to their landlord, or directly to their mortgage company from the time of application going forward that would reimburse whatever double expense they had during the time of displacement.
And one thing,
It sounds confusing, but generally it is a federal program.
I want to thank Anna for a great presentation. I appreciate it. I want nice set up to see Paul back, by here. We missed you in the last meeting. And I got some other questions in the program section.
Thank you, sir. Any further public comment on agenda? Yes, sir.
Craig Ryan, Central Township. On this number 13, is this just for owners, or is this for second homes too?
It is for any primary resident, any resident who was displaced from their primary residence, not their secondary home. This is for individuals who are displaced from their primary residence, and there's no income restriction. It's for any individual who is displaced from their primary residence who meets the requirements that can now receive reimbursement. We have up to $1.6 million. And the state will audit as things are going forward, and if they see a need for one county to receive additional funds because there's a greater need in that area for reimbursement, they will will look to funnel more money to the county.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment on agenda items? Hearing none, I'll close the session. I'll look into the to resolutions. At this time, I indicate as consent of resolution items numbers 1 through 9. Is there a second? Second. Moved by Freeholder Donnelly, seconded by Freeholder Howard.
Yes, I would like to remove item number 1 from the consent agenda for further discussion.
Is there I'll second it. All in favor, so indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 5 yeas.
Thank you. So, Mr. Twig, I can actually see it with our new configuration here. And I can look in the eyes when I'm asking you the question. So, first I just have a general question on the bill list. I noticed that there were a number of items in here with regard to polling place rental fees. Is that with regard to the special primary election that already took place?
Yes.
Okay. And so, are all of those costs covered by the state funds that we are supposed to get covered with the special election? Okay, great. So then, moving on from there, on page 15 and 16, there are a number of bills from Cape Harts Scatcherd totaling just over $21,000, and I did have an opportunity to just briefly look through their bills. I have more of a comment on this than a question, since I do have the actual billing, and my comment would be that some of their billing appears to be done in large blocks. And the best example I can give is there was like a 10.6 hours spent on a number of different things, like making a phone call, reviewing something, conferencing. So these are rather large blocks, which I think could be broken down a little bit more. And the practice of law that I'm involved in, it is. So my real request is just to break that down a little bit further, so that we know we're getting what we need. My next question is on page 40. Global Industries, about 2/3 of the way down. $21,410. Says minor repairs and upgrades. It looks like that was for some kind of furniture or something like that. Can you tell me what that is?
Yes, I'm not going to stand because the folks behind me, you know,
Yeah.
before they see the front of you and the back of me.
I don't need you to stand. We're good.
This was some renovation repairs were done over at the Emergency Management Center.
Okay, and is that furniture that we're purchasing?
I believe, yes, I believe it was, I don't know if this is the line of that furniture record for you.
What that product bill is new chairs for the operators. We had done half of them a couple of years ago. This was the second half to finish the comp work.
On page 48, it starts on 48, runs into 49. Johnstone Supply Company. Again, there it just basically says renovation and household repairs. Can you tell me what those are for?
Freehold, this is, set out at highway. I have fan blades, converters, things like that, restoration, repairs, and highway hardware. That's what I have.
So who's like, is that like the engineering department?
Buildings and grounds.